Hello and welcome back to another episode of Bust Trending Gist. Today we are diving into a critical issue that affects every Nigerian, the persistent challenge of insecurity. For years, the nation has been grappled with various security threats, from insurgency in the northeast to banditry and kidnapping in other regions. Many strategies have been deployed, but problems seems to linger, raising questions about our approach and the way forward. Recently, the former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Buratai, retired, was a guest on Channel's television Sunrise Daily, where he had an in-depth conversation with Maupe Ogun-Yusuf about tackling insecurity. His insights have sparked a lot of reactions, and today we are going to break it all down for you. Let's take a look at the key segments from that interview. So sit back and take a watch.
Yesterday, I listened to the Chief of Defense Staff, give an update on the current security situation in the country. I mean, we certainly, as my colleague did reiterate several times yesterday on the program, we certainly pay respect to the sacrifices that our security personnel continue to make in different facets. We know that they're making a lot of effort, and we pay respect to that. However, people are still a little worried about and anxious about the security, especially when you look at what it is that happened only recently this week. When you look at the killings that we understand have now resulted in the death of about 50 people. When you look at the report of the National Human Rights Commission, which also came out this week, talking about what the state of human rights is, especially the right to life and freedoms here in our country is month and month. It does appear that in some instances we make progress, but then it appears we take 2 steps forward, and then another month we will take 3 steps backward. So I do not know what your own impression is. Do you think that as a people, because this conversation sometimes happens as to whether or not we are at war, and whether we have accepted that this, if you say indeed we are, is everyone aware that of who we are fighting? If you say that Nigeria is at war, the question will be with who, and whether the general citizenry have been made aware that the state of the security of our country, the unity of our country is currently being threatened, maybe by forces that we're not currently aware of. And have we put a system in place to make sure that we're able to win this war, whatever it is?
Well, very good point, Maupe. Thank you for raising this issue. You see, or if you can remember, just before I left office, and of course, immediately when I left office and was appointed ambassador to the Republic of Benin, I sent a note of warning, excuse me, that this insurgency, may last longer. I don't want to count the number of years I mentioned. I say it would last longer. It's a sort of a warning that we really need to have a long-term plan. It is not something that you just wish it away, And you see, I want to give an example. Not trying to give any excuse, but the point is, when there are national crises, we need to mobilize everybody, not just the military alone. Look at COVID-19. How much was spent? How much was invested into information, into communication, into advertisement, and so on, into palliatives, into a lot of preventive measures. So much. The whole nation was locked down because of COVID-19. But we can do the same thing. We can lock down this country to make sure that everybody, concentrates and deal with this cankerworm of so-called terrorists and bandits and kidnappers and so on. It is very fundamental. It's very important. I want to take also another example. Maiduguri flood last year. The whole country mobilized and supported the Borno state government and the people of Borno to bring relief, to make sure that the people were rehabilitated in the whole of the state. And it helped a lot. Same thing can be done to mobilize everybody to the northeast, to the northwest. psychologically, through social media, through press, and so on. Individuals can support communities.
Now that you've seen the clip, let us unpack what was said. In the interview, Maupe raised some very pertinent questions about the state of insecurity in Nigeria, highlighting the concerns that many citizens have. She pointed out that despite the effort of our security forces, there seems to be a cycle of progress and setbacks. One moment, we hear about gains against insurgents, and the next, there are reports of attack and loss of lives. This reflects the frustration that many Nigerians feel, a sense of one step forward, two steps back. What was particularly striking was her question about whether Nigeria is officially at war and if the general populace truly understand the gravity of the situation. This is a question that has been on the mind of many as the line between insurgency, terrorism, and criminal activities have become increasingly blurred. In his response, Lieutenant General Buratai, retired, emphasized that the fight against insurgency is not a short-term battle. He mentioned that he had previously warned that this is a long-term engagement that requires a comprehensive long-term plan. This is a significant point because it pushes back against the narrative that there's a quick fix to the problem. He suggested that this isn't something that can be wished away. It requires a sustained, multifaceted approach. He also drew a compelling parallel between the fight against insecurity and the national response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Remember how the entire country was mobilized. Resources were poured into public awareness, lockdowns were enforced, and there was a unified effort to combat the virus. Buratai's point is that a similar level of national mobilization is needed to tackle insecurity. It shouldn't be left to the military alone. He argued for a whole-of-nation approach where every citizen is involved, from psychological support to community-level intelligence gathering. He also brought up the example of Maiduguri flood and how the nation rallied to support the victims. This, he believes, is the kind of unity and collective action required to defeat the forces threatening our national security. His argument is that if we can mobilize for a health crisis or a natural disaster, we can and should do the same for security crisis that threatens our very existence. Now, for my critical take on this. While General Buratai's points about a long-term strategy and national mobilization are valid, it's also important to look at the context. As the former Chief of Army Staff, he was at the helm of the military effort for a significant period. So, when he talks about what needs to be done, one can't help but ask, why weren't these strategies fully implemented during his tenure? The call for a whole-of-nation approach is not new. For years, security experts have been advocating for a strategy that goes beyond military action to address the root causes of insecurity, such as poverty, unemployment, and social injustice. While the military plays a crucial role, it cannot be sole solution. The question remains, how do we translate this from a talking point into a concrete, actionable plan? Furthermore, while the comparison of COVID-19 response is interesting, there are key differences. A pandemic is a visible global threat that affects everyone directly. Insecurity, while pervasive, is often localized and its impact can feel distant to those not in the affected area. This makes it more challenging to achieve the same level of national unity and urgency. What is clear is that we need a fundamental shift in our approach. We need to move from a reactive to a proactive strategy. This means investing heavily in intelligence gathering, community policing, and addressing the socio-economic factors that fuel these conflicts. It also requires a high level of political will and accountability from our leaders. In conclusion, the conversation between Maupe Ogun-Yusuf and Tukur Buratai on Sunrise Daily was both insightful and thought-provoking. It brought to the forefront the complex nature of our security challenges and the need for a more holistic and sustained effort. While there are no answers, one thing is certain: we cannot afford to continue with business as usual. The security and well-being of every Nigerian depend on it. That's all the episode on Obas Trending Gist. What are your thoughts on these issues? Do you agree with General Buratai's assessment? Let me know in the comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more trending stories. Until next time, stay safe and stay informed.